If you're like me as a fiber artist, at some point you have bought some yarn with a specific project in mind. You brought it home, you put it away, and you sort of forgot about it. It kind of reminds me of when you go to the store and you buy a pack of strawberries and bring it home, and over time they just kind of get pushed to the back of the fridge. Suddenly those beautiful fresh strawberries are wearing little white sweaters,
Yeah.
and your yarn, it's still not a sweater. The good news is that unused yarn doesn't go bad. However, it still can create sort of a feeling of disappointment upon discovering it. In fact, if you're anything like me, you have probably gone out and bought more yarn with other project ideas in the meantime, only for those projects and that yarn to be forgotten as well. So I have decided to look for fun and unique project ideas to use up some of my yarn stash, even if it wasn't the original intention of what I bought the yarn for. So this is the first episode in a little series I am making called Hey You, Look What I Made. For my first project, I'm going to be making a sunflower shawl. Now I've made several color variations of this shawl, but I haven't made it in a lighter weight yarn. So since we have now reached the middle of summer and are heading into fall, I feel like this is the perfect project to use up some of my lighter weight yarns. I'm going to be using this Lion Brand mandala yarn that I bought a couple of years ago. I intended to use it for a cardigan, but I think that it would be the perfect color for a sunflower shawl. The pattern calls for size 4 worsted yarn, but since this is a shawl and not a fitted item like a sweater or a hat, this is just a guideline. I think the lighter weight yarn will be perfect for the middle of summer. Now I think I want to start the top center with this sort of darker brown color right here, but unfortunately the cake doesn't begin with that color. So I'm gonna have to do a little of what I like to call cake surgery. I'm gonna actually wind up this lighter shade here and then cut the yarn so that I can begin with this darker brown. I'll then add the lighter shade back on at the end of the shawl because it looks like there's a little bit of that same color at the very end. Now I can see right here where that really dark brown shade begins. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that and then move this off to the side for later. So it's time to get started. Now since I'm using a lighter weight yarn, I am going to be using a 5mm hook. But look at this yarn after I have removed that outer bit. Look at the transition on it. I just love this. It looks like a sunset. So I am really super excited to get this started and see how it looks. My flower center is complete, and this took me about 45 minutes to do. Now, ordinarily for this pattern, I would cut the yarn and begin my new color for the base of the flower petals. I still have quite a bit of this brown left, but I really don't want to cut it and waste it. And I also kind of want to see how the gradient plays out in the yarn. So I think I'm going to keep going. But first, I think I need to give myself a little hand break and stretch and grab some lunch since this is the perfect stopping point. I am back for another update, and after my last break I've worked another 45 minutes or so. That makes my total time into the shawl about an hour and a half, and I have ran into my first color change. It's right here on the end. I don't know if you can see like those last 5 stitches or so. So I've noticed that some of the color changes in this yarn are more subtle, and some other ones like this yellow and orange here are going to be more obvious. Now I probably could pull this back and rework these last stitches a little tighter to see if I could make it to the end, but I think for now it's really not that big of a deal. I'm just going to have to see how each color change falls into the shawl and decide how it looks at that point. But for now, I think I need another little hand stretch. I'm back with another update. So I've worked on this for probably another hour to hour and a half. And I actually did another color change, but it's really subtle. You can't see it. So I can't even tell where it's at, to be honest with you. So I'm going to continue to work on this kind of off and on for the rest of the day since it's starting to be kind of late afternoon now. And I'll be sure to take a photo at the end of day 1 to mark my progress. Good morning. It is now day 2 of working on the shawl, and I'm excited to get started early since I had such a late start yesterday. It looks like I'm going to have another color change coming up, possibly in this row, but I'm really hoping to get to this orange today to see how it looks with all of the other colors. Well, I had a very busy day. I had a lot of things come up that I wasn't planning, so I didn't get as much crocheting done as I would have liked. I spent about another 4 hours on this, but the good news is I made it to the orange. The only thing is it kind of abruptly turns into this darker orange here, and the beginning of this row is still kind of on this lighter golden yellow. So I'm still kind of deciding whether I want to continue to go with the orange or whether I want to cut it and pull out what I have done so far in this row and start over with the dark orange. I think I need to have at least one more row of the orange to try to decide that. But I also right now need a fresh brain, so I think I'm going to put this aside and work on it in the morning. Good morning. It is now day 3, and after looking at this with fresh eyes and natural light, I have decided to start over with the bright orange at the beginning of the row. It was just such a noticeable color change that once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I actually had to do that a few rows back with this color change here because it was one of those really noticeable color changes that happened in the middle of the row. So I just cut the yarn back and wound it up. It's really not that much. I'm just going to throw this in my scrap yarn bin. Another thing I noticed when checking the pattern this morning is that I only have 3 rows left. So I'm curious to see where I am with the amount of yarn I have because I feel like I have quite a bit. I also had this beginning chunk that I had cut off from the very beginning when I started. So I do know that these last few rows use up quite a bit of yarn as they continue to expand. So I'm just really excited to get these last 3 rows knocked out and see how much yarn I have left and see how it looks. After about another hour of crocheting those last 3 rows, I have finished the pattern. So in total, this project took me about 9 to 10 hours of solid crochet time. However, I still have a lot of yarn left. And the point of this challenge to myself is to use up my yarn stash. Now there is a way to add additional rows to this pattern, so I think I'm going to keep going and see if I can use up this yarn. So the pattern calls for approximately 900 yards of worsted weight yarn, and this cake of DK has 1181. So to keep me from putting this yarn back in my stash, I'm going to keep going, but I'm also curious to see how it measures up to my worsted weight shawl. So I'm going to pull one of the finished ones out and check the size comparison, and that way you can see this whole big thing on camera. All right, I have laid this out on a bed, and I apologize ahead of time for the lighting. We're actually experiencing a thunderstorm right now, and I live in a really old house with small windows, so I don't get the best lighting. But I have laid the DK one out over the top of the worsted one. So if you see, the worsted is where this white is at here. And there's really not a huge significant difference in the size. I would say wingspan wise about 4 inches, and depth wise maybe 2 to 3 inches shorter than the worsted weight one. So I am definitely going to keep going with this. I'm going to see how long it takes me, and then I'm going to compare the sizes when I'm finished. Okay, so of course this morning we're having another thunderstorm, so I really hope that the lighting turns out okay on this. But here is the finished shawl. I'm going to hold it up so that you can see all of the beautiful colors in it. I absolutely love this. So after I finished the pattern with the yarn that I had left, I was able to get another 6 rows, and that took me about 2 hours to do. And here is the scrap yarn that I have left from this project, really not a lot. And this is where I had to go in and kind of cut the ends if those color transitions were in the center of the shawl and I just didn't like where they landed. So I just cut and started over at the beginning of the row. So this is just gonna go in my scrap yarn bin. So now I'm curious to see how this compares in size to the worsted weight version. Here is the worsted weight version, actually over the top this time because it is just slightly smaller. So I'm going to estimate about an inch in size difference here. You can sort of see the coral and brown that's sticking out from the DK weight version that I just finished. So the worsted version uses 900 yards of yarn, and I'm going to estimate the DK version at around 1100 yards, and that's just based off of what I have left in yarn. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Also be sure to subscribe to my channel for more project inspiration as well as knit and crochet tutorials. Bye!